Okay, thank you very much. So the topic of this workshop is the interplay between regulation and risk assessment and management. And it's clear that this is something that is very important and also very delicate because of the complexity of the financial system, which is always more and more complex and dynamic and global, and therefore risk assessment and management is difficult. When I was called to talk, I thought, well, but if I'm talking after Mario Nava, who else better than him can present where we stand in terms of regulation and the way forward? So I decided to take a slightly different approach and present some reflection, some general remarks, and some view on how we could take a slightly different mind approach for the way forward. So if you think of what has happened since the crisis, how many regulatory initiatives you can recall? There have been quite many, you know. I'm sure any of you could bring up a long list. And this is just an incomplete list. It's just something that, you know, I'm mentioning, but there are more. So I think there are something like 40 pieces of regulation which were put forward since 2009. But this was needed. It's clear that it was needed because we were really risking a financial meltdown. And also the number is due to the fact that is linked to the complexity of the system, because there are so many different types of institutions, so many different business models, so many different types of risk. It is essential to have regulation which is detailed in order to address, or at least try to address, all of them. So this is something that was needed. But then the question is, where are we now in 2017? For sure, we're working on the implementation of part of this regulation. And implementation is as important and as delicate as the regulation itself. The devil is in the detail, we say, so the implementation is a very important part. I'm just again thinking of something that we are looking at now, like you know, the leverage ratio. In the last Commission proposal of last November, now it's binding to be above 3%. You know, it wasn't before. We see that the situation is not bad, but still we are working on it. Also, we have to implement the liquidity ratios. You know, so there's still a lot that has to be done in terms of implementation, which is as important as the regulation proposal in the beginning. But the point is, even if we manage to, you know, implement all the regulation that has been put in place, can we say that we have completely eliminated all the risks? I think that the answer is clearly no. And this is due to the fact that the risk may shift somewhere else. For instance, the unregulated part of the system. The shadow banking is an example. There are new issues that are emerging, you know, with time. NPL is one that is currently very much debated, and I think I understand Massimo will talk about this tomorrow. But we could also think of many other risks. Is, I don't know, high-frequency trading to become something that is very risky in the future? We have heard this very interesting presentation about fintech. So, you know, many new risks can arise. So, if I try to recap with a few questions, can we say that the system is safer? The answer is for sure yes. The answer is yes. We have more capital, awareness has increased, monitoring has improved. So for sure, the system, we managed to make our system safer. Can we say that this came without any negative consequence, any negative side effect? I think that we could argue about this, but maybe the answer is no. Regulation wasn't perfect since the very beginning. There have been maybe some overlaps in some instances, you know, or some undesired effects, the credit crunch, the problem for growth. But of course, it's time to act on it. And this is what the Commission, for instance, is doing. There was they underwent the comprehensive review of the financial regulation agenda. There was the call for evidence, where people, in an open consultation, had the opportunity to express their opinion about potential pitfalls or problems to be addressed, and this is what the Commission, for instance, is working on now. So this is something that we need to continue, to try to adjust the regulation. But then there is also another complementary point of view that we can take for the future. This is really a general reflection. It's related to the fact that lately in the Commission there is a lot of debate about this concept of resilience. We need to make our system more resilient. We cannot expect to eliminate all risks, to eliminate all issues. This would be illusionary. The idea is that it's more a mindset, it's more an approach of trying to increase the resilience of our system, to increase the ability of our system to cope with the potential new shocks, which could be to absorb the shocks or to adapt, to change, to transform in order to maintain the function, but absorbing or coping with the shocks. This is a sort of a new narrative, but it applies to many different fields, but it also applied to the problem of the financial system and financial regulation. It has to do with moving the attention from the institution thinking, the banks, to a more general system thinking. And the point that I would like to make is that, in fact, if I think about it, all the regulation that has been put forward, was this regulation that was aiming at building or was succeeding in building a more resilient financial system? Yes, for sure, yes. In most of the cases, this was exactly the result that we achieved, because we revised the overall architecture framework for supervision. We established new things like the European Stability Mechanism, the SRB, which are all aiming at increasing the resilience of the system. And there is the Capital Market Union Action Plan. So the idea is that if we cannot only rely on the banking system, we have to be in the position that if there is a shock hitting the banking system, the economy can still function. And this can be due, for instance, to the fact that we are deepening our capital markets. We are creating a single market for capital where there are more opportunities for business to get finance, or for savers to invest money because of the existence of the Capital Markets Union. So this is the Capital Market Union, for instance, is for me very much in line with this resilience approach. We do not eliminate risk, but we build a general system that is able to cope with potential new shocks or changes. So I think I will stop here. It's more a general remark. So if I have to recap, can we say that the system is safer with all the regulation put in place? Yes. Can we say that the job is finished? Definitely not. We still have to work on it. But we can also start changing a little bit the mindset, and I think this is what's happening, in thinking that the issue is not very much related to eliminating the risk, but in increasing the resilience of the system.
Thank you.